time for another lunch with Banks, and this time I got Heroic's ferocious captain. That's what I'm going to put you down as. Is cadiaN joining me this time around? cadiaN, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Just came here off a win against G2, so that's a good one.
Yep.
Obviously difficult teams all along at this stage, so yeah, no easy wins coming your way.
Definitely no easy wins. Let's grab ourselves some food and we can sit down and do it. Now,
we consider quite carefully what we eat.
Okay.
But I mean, at events like this, you know, we don't decide the menu.
Yeah.
So from the options that's available, you pick what you like the most. But like we're not like going for pizzas and burgers and like stuff like this.
Too heavy food, right?
Yeah, and well, like we also consider a lot when we eat, like before games and stuff like this. And if we don't like the alternative at the buffet, the stuff we're ordering is like healthy stuff, you know.
Also, you always look for like an alternative anyway, so you got something. So it's interesting. You mentioned about time no one else has yet.
Yeah.
What do you see as a good time frame before eating? Like, because obviously I would look at it. Sometimes eat some nice food, and then I'm like food coma. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I think we're like mostly aiming at like 1.5, 2 hours for the game. And then obviously closer to the game, we're eating stuff like bars and bananas.
Yeah, I see your manager bringing the bananas. Yeah.
A lot of those, and we make sure to eat as well throughout the games. We try to go for stuff like nuts and stuff like this as well.
Okay, good. Yeah. So like slow releasing carbs.
Exactly.
Nice.
So yeah, we try our best, and we also drink a lot of water with the electrolytes, which is like where it's like salts and minerals.
Yep.
Contains.
So fully hydration.
Yeah, exactly. Hydration is important.
How would you describe your school life? Were you one of them, maybe the popular ones out there? Were you a troublemaker?
I think like a little bit of everything. Like was one of the popular ones, but also like a troublemaker. I think I was like one of those who had like a hard time sitting still and not always speaking when the teacher was like teaching stuff.
Yep.
But also I had like some subjects which I liked a lot, and then my passion and my enthusiasm really shined through.
So you applied yourself what you liked.
Yeah, and then there were some of the like other subjects where I had like a harder time understanding stuff, and I also felt like the teachers didn't cope that well with people not understanding it in the first time.
The standard thing that happens in schools.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
And as soon as like you don't get it the first time, and they kind of like move on to the next one, and they don't try to like catch you and get you to that point, you're just like lost behind already. Like, so I tried that a bit in like maths and stuff like this, but like in a lot of the other subjects, like where you have to be vocal and stuff like this, I was like really good and always spoke my mind well and stuff like this. But I also say like homework never had like the biggest priority for me. I liked playing my handball a lot and like playing Counter-Strike and being with friends and stuff like this. So I mean, I could have definitely prioritized it more, but also when I went to high school, like esports just like took over in the end, you know, and I was traveling a lot and a lot of absence because of that. So like at the end of the day, I didn't exactly get the grades that I wanted, but I still got some decent grades, and I was the first in my family to go through high school.
Nice.
Like I have one older sister and an older brother. But they're like 20 years older than me.
Oh wow, so you're like me, I've got a big gap with mine.
Exactly. Yeah, in Denmark we call it efternøler.
Okay.
Yeah, so like my mom had those two with another man.
So yeah, like my stepsisters, for example, I've got like an 18-year gap for the closest one, but I've got 4 older sisters.
Yeah, it's like pretty much the same thing with like the age gap. Yeah, so
it's a nightmare, isn't it, when you're the boy?
It's different, you know. Also because like you live in a home where you have sisters, but you didn't grow up with them.
Exactly.
You know? Like so. The bond is different, you know, and not saying it's better or worse, but it's just like it's different.
I remember being bullied a lot by my sisters, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Counter-Strike already, but was this like your first game you got into? Was that like the first thing you were starting to get into gaming because you said you played sports, or was there some other games beforehand?
Yeah, I played a lot of sports, and I had a lot of stereotype thoughts about people playing video games.
Interesting.
I was like, oh, that's like nerdy. That's not for me.
Wow.
What are they doing? Why don't they just want to come out to the schoolyard and like play football and stuff like this? So I really didn't understand them, to be honest. And I was probably one of those who were like looking down upon it, you know, in the beginning. But then I had a friend he had an older brother who was already going to high school, and we were still at primary school. And then like we were playing at his place, so he could play on his older brother's PC and I played on his.
Oh, nice.
Like that's how I got introduced, and we were like playing Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Half-Life, like catch-up games. And that's when I like realized, okay, it's actually a really social thing, you know. Like I'm playing with them, we're having fun, it's creating things we can talk about, we're making moves in the game together and stuff like this. And then I wished for a PC and got one from my mother and got Counter-Strike Source from a gift from my class, you know. They like you all put in like, what do I know, €10, you know, or less, it's like €5, and then
a little bit of money, build it up.
Exactly, and then it was like exactly enough for Counter-Strike Source, so they bought me that and the other guys. And I just never left it, you know. Some of the other ones bought new games, different games, but also my mom also prioritized, like she didn't have a lot because she was working at like a nursing home for people with, what is it called in English?
Disability? Oh, dementia.
Yeah, dementia.
Yes,
yeah. So like she, like all the money that she earned went to like rent, food, me getting the right clothes, because you know how boys are as well. They want the right shoes and stuff like this.
Trainers.
Exactly. And also like all my sports, which definitely cost a lot of money as well. So
never
like,
cheap.
if I came and said, hey, this new Call of Duty, like it's only $100. She's like, nah, like you're not gonna get that. So I luckily fell in love with Counter-Strike, but also I maybe didn't have like the options. Yeah. So like that was pretty good.
So how old were you at this point?
I think I maybe been like 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say you were playing Counter-Strike initially with your friend, was it 1.6 then, or was it just Source?
It was just Source, yeah.
So you're pure Source.
Pure Source,
okay,
yeah. I mean, I played a little bit of 1.6, but really not a lot. Like all my friends were playing Source, and even when they left, you just quickly through community servers, you find like people who, and also my big brother was playing Counter-Strike Source.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he was like in some of these community servers. One of them were called like Velocity Gaming, I think, or something. And they had like their servers, and I was playing with them, and I was like 11, and they were all like 30 or something, you know. So I learned some things there as well, and yeah, just fun times.
So how do we go from playing Source on competitive, like community servers, a man who plays a lot of sports and stuff as well, then you get older. When did the team element come in? When did the competitive side? Because there's always this parallel between playing real sports and you're competitive there, you got a lot of energy, and you take it through to the game. Yeah,
I mean, my priority was still like on the physical sports, like football in the beginning, and then in transition into handball. We have this thing in Denmark called like Team Denmark, which is like for the elite athletes, who's like getting support to try and get to like a professional level. And I did that like in my high school.
Nice.
So I was like trying to get there, but my body couldn't like physically go there. Like I had like injury with my knee and then with my shoulder and like some troubles. And so like for many years, like that was my priority. But like I was still playing on the other side, and I got introduced like to the Danish side gaming.dk, which is like what Does 2
I remember,
basically is nowadays. Like it's not the same, it's two different platforms, but they have the same audience, you know?
Yeah.
And I read some news and played with some people, and all of a sudden I had myself a team, and I went to like a LAN called Blast as well.
Oh, okay.
And like the very first one, and we played the B tournament. We were eliminated quite quickly, but MTW was playing there in the 1.6 tournament. You know, I was playing the Source one, and I was like in the line to get the badge and stuff with like Sonic and those, and I was like fanboying pretty hard because I've seen them in that documentary that was running on Danish television.
Cool.
And when we were out of the tournament, like I sat behind them, and that's when I like realized, okay, there's like a lot of team aspects here, you know? Like they're like fist bumping each other, they're looking at each other's screens to see what angles are they holding, playing off each other, having tactic names. And then I just like started picking up from there, you know, went into like team environment, learned stuff, was like an annoying kid with talent for many years, you know, for many years, yeah.
Now, between obviously, I remember you played on one team that's notable when it comes to Source, but really it's Go, right, where you came into your own. What was school life like on the balance between that? Because obviously you were not a full-time pro during this. Did you finish school? Did you get to the end?
Yeah, so like I think mostly like at high school it was problematic because I was going to the Team Denmark handball academy. So we had like morning training like 3 times a week, which is like at...
morning training sounds very bad already.
Yeah, it's like 6 a.m, you know, so you have to get up at like 5:30 and stuff.
God damn.
And then you like do that for like 1.5 hours, and then you go to school, and that ends at like 3, and then you have the afternoon session with the club, and then that ends at like, what do I know, 6, 7. You go home, you eat, and then you have to do the homework, and you have to play CS and stuff. So I was on like a really tight schedule.
You say, have to do homework, yes. Have to play CS.
You don't have to, but like
I get
priorities, you know.
Yeah,
I also wanted like just to have my personal space and to do stuff. And even then, like there was a period where my mom was also like teaching me that, okay, so you want these pants, you want these shoes, they cost this amount of money, like that's a lot for me, I'll give it to you, but you'll have to learn that if this was your money, would you be willing to spend it? So like she put me into a job, I got a job as a dishwasher. And I was like washing dishes, you know, and what a terrible job, you know, like...
Didn't want to do that again.
No, that's hard-earned money for sure, you know, but it gave me like the understanding of what it means to earn your own money and to not just like spend and throw away stuff. So yeah, I was on a crazy busy schedule because this was in the weekends and I was also playing match with handballs and...
Wow. So you were doing this crazy school schedule, then you were working at weekends and you were trying to juggle Counter-Strike. What age were you when you got the job?
So I must have been like, what, 18, 17?
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, all right, so you're hardcore on this, but you did finish your school, right?
Yeah.
You had that. Let's go forward onto the CSGO side of things, because I think, right, Copenhagen Wolves, when I think of you, I think of the SK obviously as well. Obviously, people now are looking at Heroic for you, right? But going back to this point, which team would you say was your first where you go, I've started to make it, like it's where I can take it more seriously?
Yeah, probably like the Sepso Mouse.
Okay.
Like I was, we were creating this like just like Scandinavian team, and on some miracle run we qualified for the first major in CSGO. And I was like 17 years old, in-game leading, AWPing, just like today. And the only player I think you still know today is AC. And then maybe Robin, the Swedish player.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then two Norwegians, which you definitely don't know anymore, which it was called Sentex and Ultra.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, nobody really remembers them.
Not even any of the 1.6 ones from that time,
Yeah, and we beat like some really good teams throughout. It was crazy, like 75 teams, 2 spots, like best of 1, and you just played like, you know...
Terrible format.
12 best of 1s you had to go through, and we beat like Voxemina, which was Sponge and those sports.
Of course.
Yes, and we beat Mouse Sports, which was like Crochet and I think Trouble and whatever they were named back then, you know. So we made it to the major, got pretty stumped by Very Games and then Faculty with the cadiaN, Glaive, Pimp and those. Yeah, but like that's when we made it. We all made a name out of ourselves. I got a contract from Mouse afterwards, but one of the problems with the early stage of my career was like of course, attitude and maturity. Like I was 17, 18, now I felt like, okay, I made it, I'm a big shot, you know, and I still had a lot to learn. But also I gave in on like my own role, my own identity, because I picked up as just being the IGL, and I let like Freeze do the AWPing in SK.
Oh, I forget about Freeze,
And Chris J do the AWPing in Mouse, and I mean both really talented offers, but it like undermined my ability to perform, you know.
It wasn't what you'd set out to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at Mouse as being like the serious one, you're getting this contract, getting the money, right?
Yeah.
Then we move on forward, and I think when I look at your career, because I remember the days when I was interviewing you when you were in the SK jersey, right? I can remember that. I remember seeing you when it comes to the Copenhagen Wolves side of things, but you had so much up and down in your career.
Yeah.
Now you just mentioned about like the maturity, kind of the ego as well that comes up with it. Do you think that is something that held you back? Because to me you were always on the cusp of being there, and you'd even have some great results, but something would always make it fall short. So what do you put it down to?
Yeah, I mean I think like some of it is being unlucky, and some of it is like having maybe lacked like that 2% star potential, where everyone goes, wow, because like I've been a good player, but you know how it is.
You've played with so many good players as well.
Yes, I have, like, and I definitely learned a lot from them as well. But also I think like a lot of it is obviously the ego thing, but it's also easy to say. I think my ego would have been easier for people to carry on if my work ethic would have been better. Like my work ethic is definitely something that has like improved tremendously throughout the years. You know, like. I think for me, I still have like a really good group of friends outside the game, and for me it's also difficult like seeing them go to university and developing lives and parties and...
So this is real life friends right outside of the game?
Exactly, like real life friends, and like I wanted to be part of that as well, you know, like you're unique when you make a living out of a video game, but sometimes you also just want to feel normal, you know, so like I also prioritize seeing them and being part of their lives as well, and like if you see how Counter-Strike is, like it's hard work, man. Like if you don't play like those 10, 11 hours a day, like you're getting behind, and that's just how it is.
So then also I'm going to make one notable other team on this, where we look at Rogue, for example, because Rogue obviously was one where you went off to North America, you came away from playing with the Europeans. What is that like for a European person to go into an environment that I believe is so radically different than what we're used to?
I mean, my kind of ego and self-belief, it definitely helped a lot there, you know, because again, I was not old. I was like 21 years old.
You still are young, yeah.
Yeah, and moved across the globe to live alone in an apartment in Vegas. Like, it's not like I had a teammate next door or anything. I was like literally alone, you know, like in the complete opposite way of the world, you know. 9 hours time difference for the people at home, hard to keep up the communication and stuff like this. But I mean, I came in, I set my mark, I told them how I wanted to do things. The org already trusted me a lot because I played in the European division before that. And I think like the rogue days and like from starting on the rogue days till now, there's been like a lot of stability in my Counter-Strike career. Like, I agree completely to a sense of like the early days, chaos, you know, like complete chaos. But since then, I've like basically played for 3 organizations. It's Rogue, North, and now Heroic. And
actually, I'm going to go back on what I said on the chaos side as well, because I actually don't think it's fair to say it's just your ego side, because also that Danish team at the time, there was so much talent, but there was so much of this backstabbing. Like, I remember you lot having roster, not just your team, but just Danish teams, roster change. So that's also a fair point I'll add to it.
I mean, I remember when like with SK, like Pim was texting me, hey, like I'm really interested in joining, and I was like, nah, we're good, man, we're good. Like, and then he asked the next one, and then they just kicked me instead, you know. Like, I was like, nah, let's try and keep this unit together and see what we can do. And then he just went to the next one and they're like, yeah, let's just kick cadiaN, you know. So, I mean, there was a lot of backstabbing, and also back then we even had like what was called the cadiaN effect. I don't know if you heard that explained, but like he was so good, and then like whenever he left the team, the second best team would take him, and they would kick that worst player, and that worst player would join the next one, and like the whole, and then
it's like a ladder, but you're going down.
Like the ladder, and then 3 weeks later, cadiaN would be like, "Why am I playing with these noobs?" And then he went back to the top team, and then shuffle again. So, Danish scene, like back then, you didn't have contracts in the same way that you have nowadays, you know. So people, if they didn't like you, they just kicked you, and also the players decided way more, you know. So if you got unfriended, like if you got into an argument with someone and you couldn't like handle it. Imagine like 2 17-year-olds or 5 17 years old. Like, I remember also playing at recent gaming, DreamHack Summer, MSL and Nille. You remember MSL and Nille, like they were the best friends. And then like one day before I had to like call both of them and like, yo, we need to go. Like, and then MSL didn't want to play with Nille, and Nille didn't want to play with MSL because someone owed money from something. And like back then it was crazy days, you know. So
Wild West.
Counter-Strike and esports has developed a lot.
Luckily it's developed as well, but you've also developed not just as a player but as a person, right? And then you spoke about it. You had North, then you had Heroic. Now, North, just as an organisation, seems to be very messy in how decisions and stuff were made. But how was your time there? Did you see it as a development of yourself, or did you see it more of like a stopping ground?
Like the success that Astralis had put so much like pressure from like the investor side, and like, why can't you do this? You know, like, so we were being like number 8, 9 in the world, and they're like, this is not good enough, you know. And that's also tough, you know.
They're putting you on this pedestal with the rest. Yeah.
Exactly. They're like, how are you not winning these tournaments and stuff like this? So, I mean, I think that I should have taken more responsibility in terms of like making sure my style would be implemented, because they were also still living a lot in the world of like MSL liked to do this and MSL liked to do this, and I think MSL style was like, I'm not sure if he like invented it, but it was like super strict and structured, you know. So mine is the opposite. So when I came, like people were not like moving unless I told them to, you know, like because they wanted to have like set defaults, where everyone was like, you flash this and I do this and this, and I'm more like feel out stuff, you know, make moves. You have like 10 eyes, 10 ears. If you hear something, let's react, call for information, you know, this kind of stuff. So I think like me and the players just had like different philosophies, and also I think like it's kind of cliche, but you know that saying with like, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
Like for me, I thought the destination was North, right? Because I literally lived my entire life to move to the US to play, to get attractive enough for a Danish team to pick me up. So when I got the offer from North, I was like, finally, man, I'm moving back to Denmark. This is the team, it's a top 10 team. We're gonna make moves. And then things just never clicked. And that's at least one part where I learned, okay, so it's the journey, you know, and I learned a lot from the mistakes in North as well.
So let's look at this online era, right, where you guys really start to make your mark on things. We see a lot of positive potential, but what I find interesting is like, not that you're older, I'm older, but you're not older yet, like, but you are older compared to the rest of your team, and you have finally 4 Danes under you, which obviously we've seen changes in the roster, but it's 4 Danes that listened to you, believed in you, and you've solidified yourself as a proper captain. What does that feel like? Because obviously it's what you've been waiting for.
I mean, it means a lot. It means more than you think, you know. As a captain, if you don't feel the trust from your teammates, like, you're worth nothing. You start hesitating, you start doubting your ideas, your philosophies, and I've always felt that I have like so many good ideas and philosophies to try and implement to the game, and some of them, yeah, they're crazy, you know. But like if you buy into the craziness, you'll see the logic behind it and you'll see why it works, and that's what's been happening in this team, you know. No one is hesitating. If we see the bump B and there's 2 guys left and I say both of you go A, they do it. And then the opponents run into A and they're like, you're really smart, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, thank you for trusting me, you know.
Some of the best teams in the world still can't do that.
Exactly, so like I really appreciate that a lot more than they probably think. And it's a lot of kudos to them as well, you know, because I take a lot of space, so I need to be granted the space as well, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just been one hell of a ride, and to have these young guys and see them learn and develop as well, because I'm also really strict with them, you know. Like,
oh, I see that. Yeah, we see that.
Like, not a big surprise to people probably, but even like when we're practicing and it's like against lesser teams, I'm like, how are we not handling this situation better? We literally just talked about it before starting the communication, these one-on-X situations and stuff, you know. And like, they're learning so much, and they are all super talented, you know. You can see that all of them have the superstar potential, and for now it's down, running away with a lot of the shine, but it's also well deserved, you know. That kid is just playing out of his mind.
And individually, I always said this, I think I said this to you on interviews before, it's like anyone at any given time, doesn't matter if it's you, doesn't matter if it's Refresh or Stout, even Schuss, Tessers, someone could do something insane, and your lowest skill ceiling is not that low when you compare it. You don't have, like some teams have, a weak link where you go, it's a problem. But is this because they all have the similar work ethic to you? Because like you talk about how hard you work, but it seems like they're also wanting to kind of match you.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a lot of complaining when I like say like this is the schedule, or this is how we're gonna do things, or we meet up at this time. No one is like complaining. So that's a big positive. I think we can still work harder, and we can also be more efficient still. So there's still plenty of things to work on in that department. And also like even myself, I know that I still have 5-10% more to give off individually, but it's also going to require that my teammates are like taking the responsibility throughout the round, because I'm still like looking at my radar all the time and guiding stuff, and oh, you have these nades and you guys need to do this and stuff, you know. Where I mean, I'm assuming that, I don't know it, but I'm assuming that most of the other top tier Orbers, they don't have to take on that same responsibility, you know?
Definitely.
So I think like there's pluses, there's like good things and bad things on that department, but you see all other top tier teams, most of their IGLs are like 0.93 rated or stuff like this. Like I'm never down there, you know, I'm like 105 kind of stuff, and that also means that gap is like the gap that maybe a top tier, if I'm 105, a top tier over is 115 sometimes.
Yeah,
you know? So that kind of gap equalizes. So sometimes when people are like, yeah, they need a top tier over to make the next step. Well, we have 4 rifles who's being facilitated more, and you don't have any player who's like not able to do it, you know.
It's a balance found within it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I'm going to say, when I remember even tweeting about it, when the Hunden situation came around, I looked at it as not just looking at the issue that happened, but I thought that could break the team, right? But I think what's most impressive is that you guys held it together, you didn't crumble. Obviously some roster changes came in afterwards, but how difficult was that as an IGL and just for Heroic in general, right? Because obviously the journey is the backlash. Now you're used to backlash, you've taken it, but I look at some of the younger guys and I think, oh God, this could like mentally block them.
Yeah, I mean for sure, not an easy situation at all. Like, also just coming from the FPX situation, right, where you're promised like a new home, new salaries, new contracts, a spot in one of the biggest Counter-Strike leagues ever created at the time, and then to be told that the sale is like falling apart. Esotec is moving to Astralis, having to go to rebuild, and I was like, I took the reins and I said like, okay, if you want this team to work, we need to make these moves. And then I brought in Nico and Tessis, and we removed Snappy, which was like, that also required a lot of courage to do, but that's like when we started. And then, as you said, like there was a hard hit to rebuild everything from scratch again, like not even knowing if you had an organization. Yeah. And then all the hunting things came along, and as you said, like again, super difficult, young group of people. And I mean,
we've seen teams break up for less, right? That was my issue.
Sure.
I remember tweeting it like, oh God, this could be just the end of it.
But I have so much heart, and so do my teammates, you know, like, and we put it into the game, and we cherish on each other, cheer on each other, help each other, talk about all the difficult things as well. And I also think that, I mean, yeah, the bond that we had and have with the new lineup as well is just so strong that a lot of the other teams, I'm guessing all of them can like pack their shit, you know, like because we stand in it together, and there's been a lot of cheers around it, and many situations you would maybe think, yeah, let's just change it, let's just leave for another team, but also we came out so much better, and I mean people are still talking about it to this day.
Yep.
And I don't want to name any names and stuff, but a lot of the players we're competing against is also having banned coaches. And none of them is getting the same stack that we are, and me specifically is getting a lot, and I'm also fine with that. I'm fine with taking some of that backlash, so like people are not talking about my teammates having been in all that, you know.
Let's bring me on to the next point as well. Yeah. Do you feel like, okay, yeah, we've had that situation, but do you feel you guys are targeted more and maybe unfairly targeted more in a situation which obviously you've been issued the bans, you've dealt with the situation, it's technically cleared, and it just still seems to be full focus on Heroic?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of knew that when we got cleared that some people would still, you know, question it, and those people you're just never gonna get away from. But that's also like if people get assaulted, if people claim something really bad about you in real life as well, like let's say that you killed someone and you didn't, like even though you get cleared in the
look at the Johnny Depp trial right now.
Exactly, like it's just reputation wise, and people are still thinking, and oh, of course he did it and stuff like this, you know. And obviously that's super frustrating because it's also a mark that I don't want and my teammates don't want to have in their careers, but it's just part of it. But I think it's more like the double morale on some of the players tweeting stuff, you know, because I mean, if you look at the amount of coaches banned and which players they had playing for them at the time, like it's just naive to go after us just like that, but it is what it is.
People can quickly forget. Now, finally, I want to touch on the screaming and yelling, right? Because you throw a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, and you wear your heart on your sleeve in that way. Some people love it, some people dislike it, but like any one of us who have been around you, we can see it's not fake. You can't fake that enjoyment from it all. What is it for you though, right? Because do you feel sometimes maybe it spends too much energy? Is there a way you have to control it? Is there a way that you try to think about it? Because I look at it as like, say a best of 5. You're going to be screwed if you're doing that for the whole time going it, but you are one of the few that still manage to just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I played in like 3-4 best of 5 finals, and we won all of them, so apparently it's still working. I think it's also what, like, it takes a lot of energy, and obviously when the game is done, I'm a dead man, you know, like, yes, I'm completely dead. And that's also why, like, when we win and we have the crazy moments, sometimes my head is like completely, because I stand up, I yell so much, all the blood is
I see that red face.
I'm basically fading, you know. And yeah, I mean, some people hate it and some people love it. Like, for 9 out of 10 times, the screaming and the yelling is like at my teammates, you know, and celebrating them, hyping them, and I just want to win so badly. And that's not just for Counter-Strike, that's in every basically thing I participate in. But also for me, like, I've been in this game for so many years, and I'm at the peak of my career in terms of what team I'm playing on, and I'm getting deeper in tournaments than I've ever been. I'm with a team that I love and want to fight for every day, and I don't take anything for granted. No game, no win, nothing for granted. And I tell my teammates this as well. Just realize that even though you're in this situation in your career right now, look at some of the players who's been in similar situations who's worth nothing right now, you know? So don't take it for granted. Keep fighting, keep celebrating. And I think, like, I've seen it in sports a lot. Those teams and individual players in the individual sports who win but are like too cocky to celebrate. I don't like it, you know. It can have some coolness around it for sure, but I just think you should never take a win for granted.
Okay, that's the way to do it. Now, you're here at the Major, you're trying to make the dream come true. You've already won big championships, but how are you getting over this playoff stage thing that people say? And do you think it is what people say, that there is a blocker?
Potentially. I mean, I also just think that what happens when you go to the playoffs? You play better teams, you know? Like, people are like, oh, they lost to Navi, they lost to FaZe and stuff like this. I mean, yeah, no shit. They're 1 and 2 in the world, and I'm not saying we're the best or second best team in the world. Like, we're probably in like that top 5, top 6 area. And I think mental block potential, I think just like the communication side is like dropping 10%, 20%, also like the initiative that people take. And when they don't take that initiative, the flow just lacks, you know. And I have to like kickstart it every time, and
so more energy from you as well.
Exactly. So it takes from my focus as well. And if I'm throwing the ball up and no one is there to catch it, we're not going to score the goals. We're not going to win the rounds, you know. So I think that it's getting better. It's something that we are addressing. We're focusing on it in practice, but mistakes are still going to happen, and errors are still going to be there. We still have a lot to improve on. I don't think we're like near our peak at all yet. So like, I don't know if it's like a mental block, but we definitely had games in playoffs where we wanted to do better, you know, and I hope it's going to happen soon.
Let's hope it does. cadiaN, thank you so much for the insight and the honesty, my man. I appreciate it, and best of luck going forward, mate.